दूर कहीं अमेज़न के काले और घने जंगलों में देर रात जब नुकीले दांत वाला डरावना जीव न्यूक्लिया अपने दैत्याकार, भयंकर और बेस हेवी बीट्स बजाता है तो मानो पूरे जंगल में हाहाकार मच जाता है। जब जंगल के सारे जानवर डर कर चुप हो जाते हैं तब उसके मुंह से सिर्फ एक ही आवाज निकलती है, काउंटर।
Hey everyone, this is V. For tonight's show, I spoke with Mo Cortez, intersex and trans activist in Houston, Texas. We talk about the national election, COVID, mutual aid, direct action, and white supremacy. This is V from Houston Indie Media.
And this is Mo Cortez. I'm an intersex and trans activist in Houston, Texas.
I have no faith in politics, and I am not a voter, except for locally. Well, I think it matters locally. I do not think it matters nationally, especially with the Electoral College. But this next election, I am going to vote for Biden. And it's this really messed up dynamic of he's not a good politician. He's not a good person. I don't agree with his policy, I guess. But for me, I'm still going to vote for him. And so that's a unique position right now. Because, I'm not that old, but I don't remember in my lifetime. Well, also I've only lived here since I was 10, but since I have lived in the United States, Trump makes freaking Bush the lesser look better. You know what I mean? And I've asked people, and maybe you can comment on this too, Mo, because you follow politics much closer than I do, I think. I've asked people about, is Trump actually worse than previous presidents, or is this just something that the media is saying, or is it just because he spews so much hatred and so much crap? Is that why it just seems like he's worse? Minus what he says, looking at just the policy, is he worse? And so the conclusion I've come to is, yeah, he is actually worse, like a lot worse.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then my, a little bit of background about my political stance is there's a lot of agreement. The national politics in regards to like the president, I don't really follow that or do much about that. But what I do though is follow the county elections, the state elections, and things like that, and just even the regular stuff like the quote unquote bottom of the ballot races that are out there. Like every single race matters. I feel like it matters, and in regards to making an improvement in people's lives. But with what you're saying though, I'm a progressive. I'm a Democratic progressive, right? So Biden, it was not my first choice either. I still would have gone with a different candidate, but he's much better than Trump, as they say already, and he's will he continue the policies of Obama? That's what I'm kind of wondering about. Like, even though we whichever leader we get next, like what policies will be implemented, that could be very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be voting for Biden this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't follow national presidential politics per se, per their actual policies, unless it's something gross and over like what Trump's been doing with anti-immigrant stuff, anti-trans stuff, anti-everybody stuff. So
yeah,
I hope to come online, but I really hope that that they really begin to listen to the people, and that Congress starts taking action and basically getting the people's needs met, because that's definitely not happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of the people struggling to pay rent or pay their mortgage, I saw that there's like an eviction protection thing happening right now, but it's for people in commercial apartment complexes. Do you know more about that?
I don't know too much about it. I know what you're talking about, but I don't know enough about it. Yeah, I know it's screwing people over in Houston. Like, my little understanding of it is that people, the I don't know what the word is, but the people they're leasing from need to, either the company or the person need to agree to let them ask for the help from the government, from Houston or whatever this is that Houston is doing specifically. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's written into the policy or what, but the leaser has to give the leasee permission, and I think maybe even sign with them, but definitely they need the leaser's permission. And a lot of leasers aren't doing that. And I think they can evict either ways. I was trying to figure out, can they still evict even if they don't agree to let people do that? But I think they can evict either ways. And for some reason, a lot of people haven't signed up with the city to get those funds or to get that assistance.
And I'm curious about it because I have a few friends that are undocumented or just different situations in life, and that's a big barrier. Whether you're going to do something like that, you need an ID to get your request for even to fill out the application. You need an ID, you need a social security number, you need an address, and if you don't have this stuff, then you can't even apply for this stuff.
I think it's that plus city landlords and some lords who you can't even get a hold of, because they have to agree in order for you to get this assistance.
Yeah. And I know this might be off tangent, but I used to live in an apartment complex off of West Alabama and Dunleavy, and they had sold the complex. They had sold the complex to different companies, saying that nothing had changed. They just have a new owners of complex. And then the very next month, they gave everybody 28 days to leave. They a different property, bought it and renovated the complex. So that's what happened about maybe 6 years ago. But that could easily happen now. Exactly, it's much more common than we think. With all of this talk about there's a lot of people are pushing to defund the police and actually reinvest in communities. When we give people places to stay, when they have food and shelter, when they have a connection to these resources, when they have the support. People don't resort to doing crime because they don't need to do it. Because they're taken care of. But instead, in America, we like to criminalize poverty. That's the big thing that we do here is we criminalize the poor.
Mm, for sure. Can you talk more about that? Can you explain that from like an anti-authoritarian kind of perspective?
It's just my point of view, but in regards to capitalism, this whole structure, it's married to white supremacy, so it's built together. So whatever benefits white supremacy, the people who aren't a part of that pact or whatever, like black and brown people, everybody else, right? We have to basically subsidize those people, whether it's through taxes, to pay for these oil refineries to release more, off-gassing, or whether it's anything of that nature in regards to capitalism. It's just, if you're poor, then, or if you've been incarcerated, it's very expensive. I mean, everything is expensive. Even the little time that I've helped a few people that have been detained in these private detention centers, like their bare necessities aren't even met. I remember a couple of months ago they didn't even have stove.
Wait, hold on. What are you talking about when you say private detention centers? I just want to make it clear to listeners that you are talking about United States concentration camps that hold immigrants.
They're corporate run. Yes, that is exactly it. These are, and that's exactly what they are, concentration camps. But since the children are not blonde hair and blue eyed or white, then people aren't really worried about it. So unfortunately,
mm-hmm. Well, so on that note, you were saying, we need about subsidizing and stuff like that. We also help with mutual aid, and with COVID, with the pandemic, I don't want to even say it right now because it's, who knows how long this is going to go on. But since the COVID pandemic has started, tell me about some of the mutual aid that you have been doing.
Mutual aid that I've been really doing, really much has been just a collaboration of friends, just getting food and giving food to people who need it. So what that could look like, giving it to an organization, or actually literally giving it to the people who need it that are on the street. So we've a few friends have done that the past few weeks. Is just basically gather these resources and then redistribute as needed. And like I was saying earlier, like capitalism and white supremacy, they go hand in hand. It's a married couple. So basically, that's why you see some of these lawmakers, passing policies that favor their personal companies or their affiliates or their relatives, right? And subsidizing, these tax breaks for these giant corporations that are too big to fail. Like that's just, that's a lot of government welfare for the rich, not government welfare for the poor.
Can you explain that? Like, if there's anyone who doesn't know that's listening, can you explain what you're talking about when you say subsidizing taxes for the rich?
Yeah. So, subsidizing taxes for the rich looks like basically rich people. It looks like what is it called? SpaceX with Musk. I don't know what it is. Elon Musk.
Oh.
Like, basically, he did a bid to open up headquarters in Texas, and he won the bid. And his response was, this is a place where everything could blow up and nothing could happen. So, meaning he got a tax break for opening up a business in Texas. He got all of these resources, right? And he doesn't even care about the people who live at that future site, right?
So he gets the tax break from Texas?
Yeah. From what I understand, he's getting tax breaks from the state of Texas for opening up the headquarters in Texas.
So who decides that? Like, is there who decides that in Texas? Was that unique to this case, or is that something that happens when it's like more than so much money is involved, or something like that?
That's a great question that I do not know the answer to, but I feel like it's happened a lot. Like, even whenever Mayor Turner wanted to open up an IT corridor in Midtown, he's already moved things around to open up that the IT corridor in that part of town. So I think it's city, it's county, and it's state. And how did Elon Musk, actually get those tax breaks? I don't know if that was an email to the governor. I don't think it was a bill, because if it was a bill, there would have been a lot of ruckus. So I don't know I don't know who. That's really a great question. Like, who controls the money? Who controls the tax purse, right? And how that's used, and who's able to give that. And just going into more detail, whenever you're poor, whenever you don't have any money or a job, a lot of us, like I did, apply for unemployment, and then I was denied because they said that, that me being vulnerable to COVID didn't matter, basically, or I didn't have a real vulnerability, in other words. So I have a hole in my heart that they closed up when I was one, but they still wanted me to continue to work. So, as poor people, we apply to food stamps and different, resources that are available. And a lot of people, kind of shun that. And I feel like even growing up as a kid, I felt shameful. And my mother, always stated like, we're not on food stamps. We're not on food stamps. Like that's a badge of honor, but it's not a badge of honor. We've already paid into this stuff. That's what people aren't seeing, is that none of this stuff is free, because we already pay into this stuff with taxes. It's just not allocated to the right places. So whenever corporations, ask for money from the government, people see that as something admirable, or something as funding the top, or what is it called? It's like the trickle down economics, capitalism and white supremacy again. Of you help out the people the job creators, you help those people out, and then they'll think about hiring people or giving them money out or loaning the money out. I mean, we saw that in 2008 when all the banks were bailed out, right? Mm-hmm.
Can you
they give out that money?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Can you elaborate on the connection between trickle-down economics and white supremacy?
Trickle-down economics, from what I remember watching on TV and school, was pretty much a policy that President Reagan had initiated, where you basically fund the people who are running the major heads of corporations. And when you fund those people, or you fund the businesses, then once you fund those businesses, they'll be able to reinvest that into the people and hire a bunch of people and give back to the communities. But instead, the opposite has happened, in America over the past, 40 to 50 years of outsourcing our jobs. We used to make cars here, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be American cars. It could be any product, right? A lot of people, what they typically do, at least I've noticed here in the Houston area, is they'll go for bottom dollar goods. So basically, the buying goods that are, outsourced, that are from outside the country, which are okay. But if you really want to invest in the people, I think for me personally, it's about giving the people, the workers, a part of making the workers a partner within the business, some kind of cooperation where the people, perform some labor and they're able to exchange that, right, for having a livelihood and a place to stay and having a community. So essentially these, I don't know what the direct connection is. I don't know if there were any to white supremacist policymakers, white supremacy policymakers. I don't know what their names were, but basically, whenever you take resources and you give them to an allotted group of people that are mostly white and older white men, then you're pretty much espousing white supremacy and capitalism, where the people with it's basically the golden rule. He who has the gold directs all the rules. So if anybody wanted advice, like if any callers or listeners wanted to, I would say, you can't take any action. Like, I know a lot of people right now are doing, this, I don't want to talk about the low, but the flow that, this pandemic is happening, right? I think a lot of people are either home alone or with nothing to do. I think now is the best time more than ever for people to research and look up which policies matter to them and look up who's writing what and mobilize, whether through an organization or through your friends or whoever, to vote for candidates that are doing things in their best option, but to also create a ruckus. What that looks like is going to City Hall and telling them, hey, please defund the police, give this money. This is just an example, to give it to social workers or just other resources that really need it. Or even to schools. We could actually fund our schools, right? But that's different now with COVID. But people now have the prime opportunity to refocus on what matters to them, to be introspective, and to see, like, this is really kind of a COVID wake-up call of, like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Do you want to live that 9-to-5 job, drive an hour out there to the oil areas, whatever, to the to the business districts, whatever, and drive an hour back to get home. And then when you get home, you're tired, you're fatigued, you've been in traffic. I think there's a better way. I think that's what COVID has really taught us, that there really is a better way, albeit in a way that's not really constructive, or not really in a nice way, right? But
I think it's definitely given us the chance to move in a different and better direction. But like I was talking with my co-producer, Rachel, recently interviewed her about what's going on in Houston as far as people going back to school. And one of the things that she said that really stayed with me was, she said that it could have been a great opportunity for schools, for the districts to do things differently. But it didn't happen. It didn't really happen. So, and you can check out the interview if you're interested, on Houston Indie Media YouTube, if you want to hear more about what she said about that. But she had a lot of ideas and a lot of, ways that education could be changed, and really just in Houston within the district, right? Obviously that applies everywhere, but she was just talking about here, and just none of that happened.
And it still can. I mean,
yeah. I'm not saying I just think it's going to be harder than we thought. Like, I guess I'm just trying to say, like, let's really push that. Like, just to add on to what you're saying, let's see what we want and what we need, and like, let's really push that. And one of the things that I believe really strongly in is abolishing police. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Mo.
I think, it just ties back to what I said originally. I think a lot of crime is tied to need, and whenever needs are met, crime typically doesn't happen. So, and even, people would say, like, oh, if you abolish the police, what if someone gets raped? I'm like, they don't even do anything now as it is. There's how many thousands and thousands of rape kits, untested rape test kits that they haven't even done. I think that if they wanted to reform the police, there's different ways, but yeah, right now I just feel like it needs to go, because people really need access to resources, and mental health resources too. I think, honestly.
I think one of the most obvious things is to put that money into mental health resources, into education, into lower income neighborhoods, and that in itself is going to solve so many problems.
Yeah. I mean, having kids having the opportunity to go to class and have connection to resources and everything.
Yeah,
definitely.
And and about like and I have heard people say, like, yeah, well, what about when someone gets raped or domestic abuse? And obviously it's not a simple conversation, and I'm not trying to make it out to be at all. But, and my own, I am a survivor of domestic abuse as well. So, it's not something I take lightly, and sexual assault. So, but, and I can only speak from my experience. Right now I'm speaking from my experience. The cops have not helped in either situation for me. And also, yeah, what you're saying is right. Like, there's so much backlog on rape kits, and, it's not something that police forces. It's just not something that, like, the police forces care about. It's not something that is a priority anywhere, and certainly not in Houston. And then as far as domestic abuse goes, so many, I don't know the statistics, but it's quite wild if you just do a quick Google search, how many police are domestic abusers and have been to jail for violence and in many forms.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting that the people that are able to see that the lack of need, see that it's a complex issue, the people that understand the issue completely understand that it's a complex issue, and that just having the police around as an executive execution force or as a deterrent, it doesn't work. Having violence as the answer to everything doesn't work.
Right. Like the same way that, you can't say, I mean, like when someone brings up like domestic assault or sexual assault, it's not quite a satisfactory answer to just be like, well, like you do need to give me some sort of something in place of police, that can solve that. But on the flip side of that, if you just tell me, oh, well, if there's no cops, then this is going to go on, or these situations are going to be really bad. Like, I'm not buying that, because again, cops, that's not a priority for them. Neither of those things are a priority for them. Also, they are the perpetrators a lot of the times. And it's all seeped in a lot of racism and sexism. So like, both ways, it's not a simple answer, but the same way that people who are against abolishing police, need more answers. I, who am for abolishing the police, I need more answers too. Like, you can't just tell me, oh, cops exist, it's going to make it better for a rape victim or a victim of domestic abuse. That is just not true.
Baloney, yeah. Not true at all. I mean, it doesn't help make anyone feel better. Like, oh, there's a cop out there, so you should feel safe. No, like,
oh no, I don't feel safe. I mean, I have, at this point in my life, I don't call the cops, and we can talk about that as well. But there's been instances where, like, I have felt like my life was in danger, or that I was physically in danger, and no, you can't call the cops. I'm not saying like I have the answer, but the cops are not the answer, because I'm not going to call the cops on like, a huge brown person, because no matter what, the cops are going to be threatened by them, But I mean, I just don't call the cops. I do not believe in the police as a legitimate institution. Their founding comes from slavery, and there's no way to like redeem yourself from that as an institution, so I do not believe in calling the cops. There are many other alternatives.
And this another arm of capitalism and white supremacy, where the people with the money make the rules, and most of the time it's most white people that make the rules because they're the ones that have the money. So it's all systematic, and it's been here for a minute, and that needs to change. People who listen to the station, understand the issues, and they will totally love this conversation.
You would be surprised. Most of our callers are angry callers, and we rarely get calls. But when you do, almost guaranteed it's someone pissed at what we're saying.
People call when they're happy.
They don't.
Extremely happy. They don't.
I don't pretend to know the ways of the world. A means to an end seems the way. Who has the most of whatever is best? All the better. May the best man win. An eye for an eye is the blind man's rule. I wasn't born to follow. I'm nobody's fool. Any other man can soon and solve. Truth is seldom found when a woman is around.
Take it like a
the travails that bedevil, but simply, for now, I acquiesce. Even now as it was then, so it will always be. The bridge has only widened. Yes, your disguise is worthy. I was never born to lose. I belong to no party. Suspicion clouds when a woman is around.
If you're just now joining us, this is V, member of Belly of the Beast Media and Houston Indie Media, and I'm talking to Mo.
Mo Cortez.
And if you missed part of this conversation, you can check it out on Houston Indie Media's YouTube. And if you have any comments or questions, or you want more info on some of the things we talked about, you can message us on our Houston Indie Media Facebook page, or you can email me at bellyofthebeast@protonmail.com.
So, like you were saying, like the foundations of police were back into goes way back a couple hundred years into the slave trading days. I think they were called the slave patrols. I mean, even here in Texas, where I'm at, the Texas Rangers, they started out as something like that, where, they killed, black people. They also killed, indigenous people and the Mexican people that were already here already. So much so, they killed so many Mexicans. They had hanging trees, like in Orange. There were actually, I went to Orange about a year ago. I took a trip out to Orange a year ago to go look at the hanging tree that was supposed to be there. But when I went out there, I learned that they actually had cut the tree down. But this Orange is in Southeast Texas. It's if any of you are familiar with the Southeast Texas, that's the home of Biter, where it is a sunset town. And Orange too, like on Martin Luther King Boulevard, I believe it's called, right off the interstate. They have in Orange. They have these rings. The rings of the Confederacy. They're basically all the different flags, the different states of the Confederacy. And they're there at that intersection on MLK in Orange, Texas, and that's wild. People have been protesting to take those things down, but we see this visual rep of white supremacy, but white supremacy is everywhere. We try to go apply for a bank loan, and you're encountered with white supremacy. They want an ID, they want your social security number, they want to know where you live, how much money you make, what your assets are. This is not a society structured for society, for the benefit of people's mental health and well-being. This is not a society that was set up for that. This is a society that was set up for the few and the elite.
Mm-hmm.
How do we develop a society that is not capitalistic and racist?
Well, I believe really strongly in direct action. Because, I have depression, and since when I moved to Texas, We moved to Southwest Houston, and then we moved to Sugar Land. And so my dad bought a house there in like a kind of new neighborhood. And I remember there's a street there, Commonwealth. If you're familiar with Sugar Land, it's like kind of it's not a major road, but it's like kind of like a major neighborhood road, if you will. And it's a pretty long, a few miles maybe, and it just goes straight. And when I first moved there, when I was a kid, like, God, I don't know, maybe 2000, probably a few years after that, but sometime around early 2000s, there would be deer on the street on Commonwealth. Like almost every night you'd see at least like 2, 3 maybe packs of deer, and you'd see them as packs. And slowly over the years, well, actually I shouldn't say slowly, it was pretty fast, and I'm a kid, I've never witnessed anything like this before. I was new to America, and I grew up in the Middle East, and there's so much disregard for nature and animals, and in the United States, and specifically in Texas, we have so much disregard for trees, clear cutting everywhere. Everything is clear cut in Texas, and since I've lived here, I've noticed that things they just take down vast woods and build. But anyways, yeah, Texas, and I'm not saying like other states care about their trees so much, but even when you travel, because I travel a lot and I travel by ground, and when you start to get into Texas, no matter if you're coming south to Texas, east or west, when you're in Texas because everything is paper towels. And like everywhere else pretty much, they use mostly the air dryers. But anyways, that's kind of a tangent. So,
and on that point, one thing I've noticed, I made a trip to Kansas about a year ago, but yeah, like even our interstate system, it's all geared towards car commerce, towards automobiles, and like we have we have really nice interstates, and you go over to Oklahoma or Louisiana or any other neighboring state, and you can tell the difference right away.
In Houston, especially, we have shittiest roads.
Yeah, we really do. But you can tell the state, at least, definitely does invest in infrastructure where, for transporting the goods and services of capitalist society.
Right. So yeah, I noticed, on that road, it would be packs of deer, and then throughout, maybe in the span of like 3 years, 4 tops, at the end, around like that 3rd or 4th year, it would be rare that you would even see one deer, and when you did see a deer, it would be like one by itself, or maybe 2. And that would, and it would be like maybe once a year since then, and I haven't seen them in a really long time there. And then so fast forward to recently, my father bought a new house. He got a house in Missouri City, in also like a developing neighborhood, and so when I was helping them move, even then they were developing the neighborhood, and I noticed like the road was just mostly dirt, and there were these beautiful trees, and then, I'd go out of town or whatever and come back, and like a month later, all gone, all the trees are gone, and it's just roads. And I saw that progression, and there was a woods behind their house for a while, for years, and then just recently they started building a neighborhood behind, and so they just cut down the whole woods. And so, and I used to hear, when they first got this house and I'd visit them, I would hear coyotes like every night. It was like the most beautiful thing to me because I'm such a city kid, and now you just don't even hear them. So anyways, my point is just, well, first of all, expansion, it's disgusting because we are stealing, first of all, we're on stolen land already, but now we're going in and like destroying these habitats of so many animals, just for this completely unsustainable expansion of Houston. But really, really, it was very depressing for me. And I was depressed for years about this. And in both situations when I was younger, and then also when they bought this new house, because even though, well, anyways, but one of my comrades kind of, explained something to me that helped a little bit. And that was, that is another reason why direct action is so important, is because there is so much that we have little to no control over. What could I do to stop this massive expansion, of that second neighborhood? What could me as one person possibly do to stop that and save, the habitats of these deer and these trees? And even if we were able to somehow save that, it's not going to stop all of the expansion in Texas or the United States or the world. But I can do direct action. I can do things like grow in my garden. I can grow in my parents' garden and try and give them a little bit of that habitat back, or feed the animals, or, a number of things. But that to me, that's one of the reasons why direct action is so important, because it's one of the ways that we can actually make an impact right now and create and work towards and actively work towards creating a more sustainable future, a more fair future, a not sexist, not racist, not homophobic, not transphobic future.
Yeah, definitely. And tell me more about direct action. What does that look like, for the average person on the street?
Well, I guess in simplest terms, it would just be, it's things like mutual aid. It's, which is just helping.
And for people who don't know, what's mutual aid?
It's helping people without going to like nonprofits or the government. So it's usually getting the resources yourself or within, with a group of people, and then giving that to another group of people without like these bullshit rules of like, show me your ID or whatever. And usually how it's done is like stuff is put out and people take what they need, because that's what most people do. They just take what they need because, they know that there's other people there getting stuff that are also in need. Another great example of mutual aid is Food Not Bombs. They meet outside the library still now. During COVID, they're still doing this. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Sundays at 7 p.m. And it's whoever wants to show up with vegetarian or vegan food, and then they hand them out to houseless folks, or really anyone that's hungry. Anyone that wants some food can come and get it. And so that's another really good example of mutual aid. And as far as direct action goes, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is growing food. It's so important to grow your own food. And I think with the COVID pandemic, a lot of people see how important it is now, because, it's not as easy as it was before. We're so privileged here in the United States that we can, and I understand I should say there's also food deserts in Houston, but if you look at like the middle class and the upper class in the United States, there's so much ease to go to the grocery store and just get whatever you need. And that's been, it's not as easy now with COVID. And it's not as safe even. A lot of people are more paranoid about like, what am I actually eating? So, I think that with Laura been this movement of growing your own food and community gardens and stuff like that. But I think now other people are starting to catch on and see how important it is. And so they're growing their own food, also, helping to provide for don't have as much as far as like growing their own food or plants or, soil or seeds or even just harvest. So I don't know, I'm seeing that more.
Yeah.
And
to the, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think since the pandemic, people are understanding automatically or more instinctually how important it is to be sustainable, and ideally like small sustainable communities. It's just what makes sense.
And, and a big part about this is that, on paper that's good, right? But how are we going to actually get people to do that? Which, we are saying some things, but I think one way we get people to do that is actually get people to do that. So what I mean, so I didn't get involved with sustainability or caring about like growing my own, any kind of food at all until I moved to a sustainability co-op in 2014 in Third Ward, Houston. I basically learned about, how to live with different people with different personalities, but also, pull the resources and money together where basically we're able to live in this nice, big old house and, grow our own food as we need and, go to the farmer's market for stuff that we couldn't get and basically develop and repurpose, goods that were already there. So stuff like permaculture, so developing like, just like even like an outward, but basically what I noticed from that sustainability co-op is that, one, it's not hard. It's actually not too hard. Like I learned how to recycle and then I learned about the different plastics and everything and how like everything we do in our lives, like whether we buy that gallon of oil or buy, a gallon of milk, like, everything that we buy that's commoditized is, human beings had to make it some way along the way or various parts of the way. And I think that's one thing with capitalism that I don't like is that our products are divorced from the source. So we don't know who basically, planted those potatoes that we ate yesterday, right? So I think going back to like what you're saying, more of a collective, like community type thing would be more beneficial to everybody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you know who's growing your food.
So in addition to mutual aid and also growing your own food, what are some other things that people at home can do? Well,
there's a mutual aid Houston group you can find on Facebook. I think they have a website too. The group is called Mutual Aid Houston. And there's a lot of, community gardens that you can find in Houston as well if you just search.
They provide
people with food, not bombs. That's something that's so important right now. It's to help feed folks that don't have during COVID.
Plant your own food and direct action. And what else can people do with direct action? To that point, I think a lot of people are already doing that already. Like I've seen so many Zoom calls about beekeeping, about butterflies, about planting your own food,
right.
About racial justice. I mean, that's one of the pros about, this pandemic that I've appreciated is that more resources are now available online and people are learning and being educated and empowering themselves and mobilizing but with that said though, I did notice that, on the 1st of this month, I think Facebook sent everybody a notice that your stuff can be taken away at any time because if it incites violence or something of the sort, I don't know what it was. I think basically, so these tools that we're using now, since we're in the era of COVID, we're using Zoom, we're using Facebook, but some of these tools are being used against us, like Facebook. We're able to connect, but now, Facebook is in bed with the police and the feds, so they're able to take away those freedoms from us. And one thing I noticed as an advocate is that whenever you don't speak up, that's when you lose your voice. When you lose your voice, that's when you lose your power. So, that's what I encourage everybody to do is, to find their voice and channel that towards action that will make things, better for themselves and their friends and, their family and loved ones.
I have a really cool outro song for tonight that someone just sent me recently, another programmer at KPFT. It's by Jane Cortez called Find Your Own Voice. What can you do you want to tell people about Jitsi? Because yes, Zoom and Facebook are not the securest platforms.
One that I'm very familiar with is Jitsi. It's JITSI, J as in Jonathan, Isaac, Thomas, S as in Sam, I as in Isaac. Jitsi. So basically, you have end-to-end encryption, and you can make a meeting time whenever you want for however long you want, and it's end-to-end encryption, and you're able to live stream that, or you're able to share screen and share presentations or have, skill shares or workshops. So I like what it does, and I like those platforms, giving people opportunities to communicate when they could. Well, the police state that we live in, that everything that we do on social media, or everything that, and we live in a police state because everything that we do is perceived by, all the social media is observed by the police, the government. So I'll give a shout out to my niece Courtney. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, happy birthday.
I don't pretend to know the ways of the world. A means to an end seems the way.
I want to give a shout out to my two friends who I know always listen to the show, Nancy and Philip.
An eye for an eye is the blind man's rule. I wasn't born to follow. I'm nobody's fool. Any other man can soon and solve. Truth is seldom found when a woman is around. Presently optimistic with the travails that bedevil, but simply, for now, I acquiesce. Even now as it was then, so it will always be. The bridge has only widened. Yes, your disguise is worthy. I was never born to lose. I belong to no party. Suspicion clouds when a woman is around.
Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. The sounds of drizzle on dry leaves are not like sounds of insults between pedestrians. Those women laughing in the window do not sound like air conditioners on the blink. The river turtle does not breathe like a slithering boa constrictor. The roar of a bull is not like the cackle of a hyena. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. The growl of a sea leopard is not like the teething cry of a baby. The slash of a barracuda is not like the gulp of a leaping whale. The speech of a tiger shark is not like the bark of an eaglefish. The scent of a gardenia is not like the scent of a tangerine. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find it. Find it. Find it. Find it. Find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find your own voice and use it. Use your own voice and find it. Find it. Find it. Find it. Find it. Find it.